What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you on this Wednesday morning here in Chicagoland. The Bears return to practice at Hallis Hall. They're moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. We still got to talk about the Texans game. Kevin Fishbane is here filling in for Adam Hoge. What's going on, Fishman?
What's going on, Johnsy? I did a lot of research this morning, thinking back to our night in Houston. And I had this feeling that we've been here before, right? Didn't you? You had that?
No.
You had that deja vu feeling, and I thought, like, what statistically can maybe tell me that this is a familiar territory, if you will? So I decided to do a very, very simple research project I'm like, how many times have the Bears lost when they gave up 19 points or fewer? Okay. So since 2019, the Bears are 25-11 in such games. So 694 winning percentage. All right, let's
Pretty
compare
good.
it. Yeah, it's fine. Let's compare it to division. The Lions are 13-5-1, not nearly as many games, similar, 7-11, so somewhat better win percentage. They looked at the Vikings. The Vikings are 23-3 in such games. So then I looked at the Packers. The Packers are 31-4. And you know what, John Z?
Yeah.
I decided to go full Mark Potash. I just did the whole league. And there's only one other team in football with a worst winning percentage in the past 5 years when giving up 19 points or fewer.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Panthers.
No. Carolina they're 17-6.
Jets.
That was my guess, not 17-9.
Give me one more. Giants.
No, the Giants 19-6.
Okay, who is it?
Well, there's a little similarity that this team has with the Bears because their defense was so good early in this window, 2019, 2024, because their head coach was Vic Fangio. The Denver Broncos, 23-16. And
That's not good.
Not good. So that's my long fun fact, or not so fun fact, if you will, to start the show, that the Bears, the second worst team in football when giving up 19 points or fewer. Only one other team has double-digit losses. The Saints 33-4, the Dolphins 30-1, the Chargers 23-3. Teams that aren't like the Raiders 16-5, the Chiefs 35-1. This week's opponent, the Colts, 25-5. So there you go.
So
How's
welcome
that
to
to
this
start the show?
podcast. Very uplifting note to begin. This one, Kevin. You can follow him at K Fishbane. You can follow me at Adam Jahns. You can read us at theathletic.com. Adam Hoge is at allchgo.com. Kevin is obviously filling in for him and providing us with the not so fun facts to open this episode. Anything else, Kev? Show over.
No, that's it. We're good. We're all set. Yeah.
So Wednesdays with our new schedule has become our film review day. Kevin will often come in and tell us what he saw in the All-22. You can read his article today on The Athletic going through the run game, if you want to call it that. Maybe the walk game, the crawl game. DeAndre Swift, the free agent splash, as you call them, is averaging 2 yards per carry. That is not good. Take us through the film, Kev.
Well, let's start with a few numbers, John Z. Just in week 2 alone, DeAndre Swift averaged 1.3 yards per carry. His rush EPA, remember we talked about EPA last week, expected points added, kind of your efficiency, how successful you are in each carry, minus 7.69, 33rd out of 33 qualifying running backs. I was interested what his yards before contact was, because just didn't feel like every time he touched the ball, there was nowhere to go. So minus 0.5, which was 31st out of 33. Yards after contact, 1.79 per carry, 32nd. Via True Media. So, but here's the thing, John Z. I'm like going through, and all I did pretty much 'cause I went through the first drive, and it took me so long just to get through those 4 carries in the first drive, but I felt like those 4 plays were just emblematic of everything that was going wrong, and just in those 4 carries, right? So he had 4 carries in the first drive, and they went for -3 yards. And thankfully, that was Caleb Williams' best drive as a passer, 5 for
Yeah,
5,
5 for
sets
5.
up the field goal. And you go through some of these plays. You know what? Let's just maybe we should just talk about the one play I think's kinda gone viral because I feel like
This
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 is a
this is the play where the 2 guards, Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins, reach the second level, one-on-one against the linebackers and just decide not to block them.
yep,
That's what we're talking about? Okay.
yes. So you've probably seen it all over social media, and I posted it, and I'm kinda glad I did because you get so many different interpretations. A lot of people who are watching this that know ball better than I do. Um, and what's great was there's so many people who, you know, people blamed Swift, people blamed Davis, people blamed Jenkins, people blamed Braxton Jones. So if you watch Braxton Jones, he gets pushed back right off the snap. Does that force DeAndre Swift inside where he's not supposed to go? And maybe Davis and Jenkins are getting ready to set up those blocks for him to do more of a wide run. Or even if he cuts back there, should they still be able to get those blocks and he should still be going outside? You'd like to see them put a hand on them just period. But I'm also failed to believe, as much as everybody wants to dump on Nate Davis, I fail to believe the guy just ran past a player just willy nilly like that. Like there's a reason for it. And Jenkins kind of did it too. So I thought that play, which as Swift gets the handoff, you're thinking when you look at it right away, you're like, oh my God, here's a big gain. And it went for 2 yards. And the Texans linebackers just ran free, it felt like all night. And I just think that play is just a perfect example where we don't know if it's the running back's fault, if it's the play design's fault, if it's the blocking's fault, and which blocker. There's 3 different blockers you could probably blame. And I just think it's a reminder that this is on everybody. This is such like just it's been I know it's only been 2 weeks, but when you're the pretty much in week 2 alone, they're the worst rushing team in football. Like you gotta you can say institutional failure for just a week.
When I saw your picture of that play, I thought they were trying to set up for an outside run where the 2 guards were in position to basically seal off where the linebackers wanted to go. Like, they had that positioning, obviously, DeAndre Swift then went inside, and that positioning, that leverage was lost almost immediately, but I just think, like, your whole article is just a great illustration of just how off this run game seems to be, and I know, like, last year, in the last couple of years, Justin Fields' rushing stats, his scramble stats would skew the numbers a bit because it's you can't expect that. You can't predict that, right? And it kind of throws off the averages. But I think you and I can agree that the past couple of years we always felt under Luke Getzey they had a pretty sound physical run game. And I think that's what's baffling a bit here is because some of those pieces are the same,
Yeah,
especially in
you
the left side.
well, the left side and of the line, you got 4 offensive linemen from last year's offensive line group. You've got I mean, the idea of free agency was that you upgraded your running back, paid him $8 million. You have the same run game coordinator. Chris Morgan has that title now, but he was essentially the de facto run game coordinator as the offensive line coach the last 2 years. So what's different? I mean, I think, I haven't been as impressed with DeAndre Swift through 2 games as I was with him in training camp. As you said, there was a play on that same drive where I was ready to say, "Oh, Coleman Shelton didn't get his hands on this one linebacker." Henry Toto, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. We heard his name a ton in the press box. He had 13 tackles, and he was just everywhere. But when you watched it over and over and over again, you realize that Shelton was setting up for DeAndre Swift to run right behind him. Well, DeAndre Swift had to go outside. Why did he have to go outside? Because Nate Davis got pushed back at the snap and cut that and that lane was cut off. So you just go through all these runs and Jahns, I got this question before the game last week, and we talked about this during the game. Where are the draw plays? right? Where are the screen passes? The
Well,
2 best ru
there's a lot of screen passes to
right,
different version of what everybody's talking about.
correct, but the 2 best run plays of the night was, the Caleb Williams design quarterback draw, and then a draw play to Travis Homer, and I get that you can't do draw plays all the time, it kinda defeats the purpose, but, it just didn't seem to be, it wasn't working, and, I'm very curious to see how different the play calling, the cadence, the focus on the run, all these different things, because when you do that and Caleb Williams is in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, and the Texans decide to blitz all the time, you have what you had on Sunday night.
That's tough. I should say that we have Mike Jones, national
Yes.
writer for The Athletic, coming in here in about 5 minutes. He was with us in Houston. He had a column from Houston. He saw what we all saw, and obviously, I think we all know that C.J. Stroud right now, at least offensively, is a better situation than Caleb Williams right now. So looking forward to talking to Mike. Kevin, the next 3 opponents for the Bears, you can run on them. You should be able to run on them. They have the 3 worst rushing defenses in the league. Number 32, I should say, is the Colts. They have allowed 474 rushing yards in 2 games. They're allowing 5.1 yards per carry. The second worst team is the Carolina Panthers, 399 yards allowed. The Rams, the Bears' week 4 opponent, have allowed 394 yards per carry. 394 yards over 2 games, 5.5 yards per carry. So I had this
What
in
you're
my
s
take.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, what you're saying is those teams have allowed more rushing yards total, and the Bears have gained both passing and running combined in 2
Yes.
games.
Yes, all you and your numbers. Yes. It feels like a get right situation for this Bears offense. And if it's not, I think these problems may be more deeply rooted than Bears would ever want to admit. Cav, before we get to Mike, though, any other observations from watching the All 22?
I was more impressed than I probably was in person with that first drive from Caleb Williams. Some of those throws he made. I thought, like, we're gonna have these discussions because his numbers are so poor and it looks so bad. But like, how does he look? Like, how much of it is on him? And like, I didn't really come out of watching the game with a ton of concerns about him. Maybe for his physical safety and well being. More so. I thought he was fine. Um, yeah, I'm just we've been around teams, Johnsy, where when something looks so bad on offense, we do see like a total reversal. I remember, I think Mark Potash actually, to bring Potsy back in, brought this up on Twitter. After that Browns debacle against Cleveland, it was a completely different offense next week against Detroit. It was like under center, play action, rollout, handoffs for Justin Fields. It was like total 180. So I don't know if we're going to see that kind of thing, but you bring up those defenses, and we haven't even talked about the Bears defense. That's like such a shame about this week. It's like, I mean, you wrote about them in your takeaways column, which folks should check out. Like, this defense is playing probably, even if it was possible, John's better than we expected. And you don't want to see the team waste it. You just said it: Colts, Rams, Panthers, Jaguars, Commanders. Those are the next 5 games. There's a bye, obviously, after the Jaguars game. The Bears should go at least 3-2 in those games. At least. Right? So, it's like a reminder, like, it's only 2 games. Let's see the adjustments that they make. Um, but yeah, so I guess the question to you is, after seeing what we've seen the last 2 weeks, do you make, like, you would expect Shane Waldron at least to maybe make some adjustments? Do you see an offensive line change coming?
Well, I said they should potentially consider the benching of Nate Davis. And I know he had a better first half, but the second half wasn't good. And if the Bears are in the business of sending messages to players, Bayless Jones Jr. being inactive as an
Mhm.
example,
Yep.
maybe the offensive line needs that right now. That's the easiest decision you can make up there.
It is
I can't
frustrating.
think of
Yeah.
another one.
It is frustrating with Davis because you're like the plays that he's doing doing what you'd expect. Like he kind of looks like a $10 million a year guard, but you're just not seeing it consistently enough. Um, the only other question I've gotten this question a lot. I don't know if somebody who's never taken a snap in an NFL regular season game in Doug Kramer is a better option than Coleman Shelton right now. I don't know if someone who's never taken a snap in an NFL game, period, and Karan Amagaji, who played tackle at Yale, is a better option at guard. But we'll see if they start taking a look at the different combinations they could have. Ryan pulls a lot of the depth. He says the deepest offensive line he's ever had. So, does that mean you feel more comfortable about making a change? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
The other thing too, Johns, is they finally had five. They finally had the same five guys for 2 games in a row.
that in itself is a positive, but
Yes, yes.
one offensive touchdown to show for it. All right, we're gonna bring in Mike Jones again, the national writer for The Athletic. He does great stuff. He has a column up on theathletic.com about Bryce Young right now. He was in Houston with us, where he has this headline in his column: despite similar timelines, Texans and Bears seem light years apart. Please be sure to check it out. Sorry. Let's talk to Mike. Mike, good to see you again. You were in Houston with us, where they had the fondue bar full of ranch, nacho cheese, and what was that? Hot wing sauce as
Yeah,
well?
but there was all the wings were gone by the time I got up there, so I didn't even get to find out if like the sauces were any good. Um,
No. They had pretzels. They weren't so good if I'm judging them.
no, they weren't. But the dessert table was very good. So I had a whole cup full of M&Ms and the pecan little pie things, and
That was good.
maybe a donut. You know, uh,
Yeah.
they had cookies. At least they made up for the tough beef and the not enough chicken wings with a good dessert table.
They did. I had too many Sour Patch Kids
Okay.
that I want to admit, but
See,
um,
Mike's a natural for Hogan Johns because he knows that we love talking about press box food.
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
it's important.
It is very important.
And don't you notice like good organizations normally have good press box, except for the
Well,
Chiefs. Um,
I was gonna say we cover a team that notoriously has had rough press box food and rough performance on the field. Although the press box spread has improved at Soldier Field the last couple of years, but
nothing will get
we get it.
nothing will get worse than the like I think it was 2011 Detroit Lions.
Yep.
They had bowls of peanuts and tables of sliced meat, like lunch meat, and had run out of bread. And that was like the halftime spread. And I was like, no wonder this team sucks. They don't know how to feed anybody.
yeah. Now I will say Detroit's got. I've been in Detroit, for more Thanksgivings, that than you want now. But the spread's usually pretty good for Thanksgiving. They put it out. They
Good,
take
good.
care of you.
Glad to
Pretty
hear
well.
they've upped their game.
I was
Yeah,
it's a
and it was
little
pretty good. It was pretty good in the playoffs last year when I was there. It
yeah,
came
it's a
along.
little weird having Thanksgiving dinner at 10:30 in the morning, but it does taste good.
Yeah. All right, how about this? You also got your first taste of the Chicago Bears this season. Look at that. Look at we're naturals here. What did you? For us, it felt very familiar to see a young quarterback struggle behind an offensive line like that. But from your national perspective, what were your takeaways from Bears Texans?
It was really disappointing because I'm thinking Shane Waldron, Shanahan coaching tree, gonna really like work to help establish the run game because a young quarterback's best friend is a strong running game and a good tight end. And they didn't even try to run the football. And I felt like as the game went on and more pressure mounted on Caleb, he felt like he had to wear the cape. And the stuff he pulled off at USC doesn't work in the NFL when these 6'5", 300-pound linemen are just as fast as you. And, I just felt like they did a terrible job of supporting him and easing pressure on him. And I don't know. I mean, there's a long way to go, but I hope they don't ruin this kid. The shots he started taking late in the game when they were just pinning back their ears and they were like, welcome to the league, rookie, like just throwing as much as they could into some of those hits, it's concerning.
Mike, you covered the Washington franchise for a while, so you familiar with the whole RG3 and the Shanahan stuff that went on there. And I think that's such a it's both it's like the cautionary tale on one side. It's also like what it looks like when it's great as a
Right.
rookie. And you mentioned the Shanahan offense. Like I guess like how kind of surprised are you that from just you from that game alone, that scheme probably looked a little unfamiliar, that it just wasn't setting up these what are supposed to be. I mean, we've talked to RG3 before. That offense is supposed to make things really easy for the quarterback, and it was not easy Sunday night.
Yeah, not at all. Look, like I said, like running the football is what you start with because then you have the play action, and the play action, the defenders are keying on the run, and it buys your quarterback a little bit of time. And then you have some of the zone read stuff and the rollout with the bootlegs, and like none of that stuff was there that I was expecting to see. I figured that they were saving some of that stuff during the preseason because you didn't really see it, in the preseason, obviously he didn't play a whole lot. And I didn't get to see much of that Titans game. So seeing it up close, I really was surprised because, like you said, it should be easy for the quarterback. Everybody from, Brock Purdy to, I mean, name any quarterback that's in that kind of an offense. I mean, CJ Stroud, even it's a very quarterback friendly offense. And, even backup quarterbacks in San Francisco have a little bit of success for a little bit of time. And I just felt like it shouldn't have been as much on Caleb as it was. And all they had to do was run the football, um, and try to get that established. I thought, yeah, the first drive when they came out and he was hitting those quick passes, 5 for 5 for I think 55 yards and moved the football. That was good, but then you really got to start settling in and work for some balance because this offense is proven it works if you go about it the right way, and you know they didn't look like they knew how to.
Mike, you've kind of found yourself on this young quarterback beat. Caleb
Yeah.
Williams, C.J. Stroud. You mentioned Will Levis, Bryce Young. You just wrote about. You got benched. I'm curious for your thoughts on that whole situation. The Bears see the Panthers in a couple weeks, and then you got Anthony Richardson on the Bears schedule next. Like,
Right.
I don't know if you have thoughts on what's going on in Indianapolis.
Um. Yeah. They're just. It's mind blowing to me that teams are either throwing these young quarterbacks out there before they're ready to actually play at a high level and grasp the situation, the system, and the coverages they're seeing. Because that feels like that's what happened with Bryce Young. I know last year was just a circus, a dysfunctional mess with too many cooks in the kitchen. But I thought that Dave Canales was going to kind of hit a reset. Look, if Bryce Young wasn't ready, don't start him. If you're pulling the plug after 2 weeks, it lets me know. And talking to people behind the scenes there have been like he didn't start making those mistakes in games. Like he's been looking this way in practice all this time. Um, you know, if he's not doing the things you need to see, don't start him. I don't understand why he didn't play in 2 of the preseason games. Dude, give him as many game reps as you can. And it's not just Carolina. It just seems like a lot of teams are so like intent on starting their young quarterbacks. They're putting them out there before they're really prepared, and their chances of success aren't great. And then you have these guys like even Bo Nix, like he's like third in the league in pass attempts, 77 pass attempts, and leading the league in interceptions, and has a like 51.0 passer rating. That's not the recipe for success. If you want to put your young guy out there, again, you got to run the football. It's not sexy, but it's going to keep the defense honest. And with Bryce Young, I said this like the interception he's throwing, like he's not like, oh, should I throw this ball? No, like he's rifling that ball. Like he knows where he wants to go with it. His mind's made up, and he's not seeing the defenders that are swooping right in and baiting them into those interceptions. So you got to pump the brakes a little bit. And then if you look at like up in Green Bay, Malik Willis, we've been told sucks. The Titans basically they started him 3 games and they moved on. They drafted Will Levis and then they gave him away to the Packers. But Matt LaFleur positioned him for success with a strong run game, play action passing, some zone read, and things like that to keep the defense honest. And he wasn't asked to do too much. All these guys that are out there right now, Caleb Williams included, are being asked to do way too much before they're ready for it. And then we wonder why they are making dumb throws or turning the ball over or holding the ball too long and getting sacked and putting their teams in holes. It's because they're not being managed properly.
Yeah, I
Sorry for
thought
the rant.
no, it's great points, and John's mentioned, the Bears are, they just faced Will Levis, they faced C.J. Stroud, they got Richardson this week, and then they were going to get Bryce Young a couple weeks later. I thought the point about the pass attempts was really a great point, Mike, in your story, because we talked about Shane Waldron worked with Sean McVay. Obviously, McVay comes from Washington, so you can kind of see where the flavor of that is, and that is a scheme where you throw the ball. And so the Bears, I was looking at, like, the Bears pass attempts are pretty high up, and all things equal, that's okay. That's how you can win football games. But you're right, when you have a rookie quarterback who's never seen this stuff before. And it's so interesting, Mike, too, because here in Chicago, we've seen it not work when they try to make them wait, because it's like, it seems like either you do the Chiefs, which I know is tough because it's an anomaly with talking about maybe the greatest to ever do it in Mahomes, but he sat out a full year, right? And then, like, the Bears, Trubisky started week 5, Fields started week 4 of their rookie years, and they didn't get, so Caleb, we kind of thought, okay, finally they're doing it right. Caleb's going to get every single snap in OTAs, every single snap in minicamp, every single snap in training camp. And so I guess the question would be, is the guys that do start right away, Burrow started right away. I feel like some of these guys, they should be no doubters, but it's almost like these coaches need to remind themselves that they still need help, right? Like, how do you think these teams should balance it when there is a guy like Caleb who does seem wired to go right away? Like, what are the things that you like? How should these teams kind of balance that?
By running balanced
Yeah.
systems. And look, Washington with RG3, I mean, he passed a decent amount, but again, he was supported with a strong running game. Um, and I think Caleb is definitely a guy who could. I'm not saying he shouldn't be starting. I mean, I look at Bryce Young and, like, he's a kid who should not be starting. I think Caleb Williams can start. You can tell he recognizes things, the way he's making changes at the line and things like that. But again, there has to be a way to try to put him in manageable situations. Um, Pick up, 3 yards here, rushing 3 to 5 yards on first down. So then you got 2nd and 5. Maybe hit another, short pass, and then you got 3rd and 1, and then you can run, or put the 3rd and 10s and then penalties, and it makes it 3rd and 15, and he's dropping back and he's got to hold the ball. That's not the recipe for success for any young guy. And then some of these kids, you see, they throw an interception and they feel like they got to come back and make it all back up with one throw, and then it turns to another interception and another one. I'm not saying that that's Caleb, because he didn't have an interception in the first game, and he didn't have interceptions until later in the second game. But again, the principles of this offense are being neglected. So maybe Waldron's just one, like, offshoot branch too far away from Mike and Kyle Shanahan to know the real intricacies and the why behind what you're doing. Because if you're intentional, like RG3, like, they had a downfield passing attack. He lit up the scoreboard. Anthony Armstrong is a dude you never heard of. Deep passes, touchdowns. Aldrick Robinson, wide receiver never heard of. Bomb touchdowns. I mean, they were stretching the field, but it was because they ran the ball. They ran the ball. They got the defense to start biting because they were worried about what the quarterback's going to do with his legs or what the running back's going to do. And they held back. He had time with the play fake and then go over the top. It could work, but they're just not doing that.
Mike, my last question for you before we let you go is it's about, like, the organization's role in all this. We've seen this play out we've seen this fail in Chicago for different reasons, like Jay Cutler, his extension, and then GM fired. Mitch Trubisky drafted, more changes. Justin Fields drafted, GM coach fired. I'm not surprised. I don't think this is going to work out for Bryce Young just because of how that organization is set up. So, in your experiences, like, how much blame is like when these quarterbacks are drafted high and they fail, like how much blame should be pointed at like all the way to the top to how these organizations are run?
I think a lot of it does. I did a story leading up to the draft on the inexact science of drafting a quarterback and why it's so hard to get it right. And the consensus I talked to, and Lee Steinberg is an agent who was Patrick Mahomes' agent. He had a lot of like Warren Moon, Troy Aikman. He's repped a lot of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He also had Ryan Leaf though, and he talked about how the difference in support that Peyton Manning received versus Ryan Leaf received was totally different, and that ruined Ryan Leaf, and just it just continued to expound the problems, and he was ruined. And he said, not all of these quarterbacks, not all of these busts can be bad. Um, and you can look at some of these guys and be like, man, if he was with this coach, I'm sure you could get more out of him. And also, I think that if you have a plan, you have to have a clear, thought out plan for your quarterback. You have to stick to your convictions and not cave and try to rush and force him in there. Or, like, there's nothing wrong with gradually bringing a guy along, even if he's starting. Okay, you know, like I said, have a balanced attack, have a pitch count. We're not going to have this kid dropping back throwing 30, 40 times a game. That's just stupid, unless he's showing he's capable. So as you kind of spoon feed him and as he gets more and more proficient, then the workload expands. And sometimes we're seeing guys, like I said, who are getting out there before they're ready, or maybe they're running an offense that doesn't really totally fit their skill set. If the coach and the GM aren't on the same page and the supporting cast, I mean, like look at Buffalo. They really did a good job of setting the table before they drafted Josh Allen, and then Josh Allen was there, and he didn't start right away. It was kind of a gradual thing. We talked about Patrick Mahomes, where he sat for a year uh, before he got in there. Be patient. Just because you get the guy right away doesn't mean you have to play him right away. Now, I do think that Caleb Williams is probably the best option for the Bears, but their philosophy has to change in how they ease pressure on him and position him for success. And the same goes for a lot of these other young quarterbacks. Like Sean Payton's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. I think he's doing a terrible job with how he's managing Bo Nix. But then you look and you see what Justin Fields is doing in Pittsburgh, where he's not asked to do a lot. He's asked to manage. And look, he looks competent. He's not a world beater, but that's okay because you have a strong defense and a strong run game, and you can get success out of that when you have a guy when you're not asking him to like wear the Superman cape.
Yeah, Mike, you had a great line in your story, which about Malik Willis. You're like, yeah, I'll take the conservative, little stats and win over everything. It's
Right.
funny because Caleb Williams said that about himself. He goes, "I'll whatever it takes to win." Let's wrap up with this. Um, you're at the game Sunday. You watch this Bears team. You watch their offense. We'll see if that's at its worst. What did you like about that Bears team? What kind of gives you some thoughts that like, hey, this team can be competitive and is going, maybe in the right direction?
Well, I mean, their defense did give Houston trouble. I mean, they really struggled to score. There was a lot of times they crossed midfield and then everything would bog down. So there was pressure. They did a good job of not letting CJ Stroud get comfortable. So that's good. That's if you can keep a team, below 20 points, that's really good. That helps your offense out a lot. So that's good. And look, if he had Keenan Allen out there, maybe things would have been a little bit better for Caleb Williams. I just, and I like Swift. I mean, he rushed for 1,000 yards last year with Philly. They have a capable running back. They can, go with a more conservative offense, and they'll be just fine. And so they have some pieces to be able to do this the right way. So that's I just don't like the approach. I do like that he's got a strong defense to back him, but I just don't like the way they're going about it. It doesn't seem like it's a smart way to break a rookie quarterback in.
Mike, thank you so much. Will we see you again anytime soon?
Not this coming week, but I'm sure. I'm sure the Bears are, gonna have some good matchups that are gonna be intriguing, and so I'm hopefully that I will see you guys real soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Well, thank you again for your time, and we'll check your stuff out on The Athletic.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mike.
man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Patience, Kevin. Patience. I think it's tough to be patient when you see like games play out that bad offensively. Like it's hard to be patient when your quarterback is sacked 9 times and like there are fights on the sideline because he's hit so hard. Like it's hard to be patient through all that. But I do believe, just in terms of the organization, like everybody's still on the same page. They're being patient with this process. They knew this process with Caleb Williams would have games like these, that there'd be moments where things could be ugly. I don't think they wanted it to be this ugly, but I think they've always acknowledged it could be a reality. So Kev, I want to leave you with this. Like Nate Tice, friend of the show, he also did his all 22. Check it out his thread on Twitter about this. It's how Caleb Williams, like I think this is very encouraging. How Caleb Williams was IDing the blitzes and directing traffic in a second NFL game. To me, if I'm taking any positive out of that game in Houston for the offense, it's this, because we saw some of that from the press box, but to see it from the all 22 end zone angle, like it really gives you a better sense for how much traffic he had to direct. Finding the mic, getting his offensive line set, and still there were failures up front. But to me, Kevin, doesn't that just feel encouraging to you to see Caleb Williams doing that in week 2?
Yeah, I mean, they're trusting him to do that stuff, and you saw it too in that opening drive. He was making some checks at the line, and he's making some really good throws from the pocket. I've been really impressed with his accuracy on some of these out patterns. Which you noted this during the game. He's throwing opposite hash, opposite sideline sometimes. I think too that third down throw to DeAndre Carter ended up being PI over the middle of the field. I mean, if that's not PI, that's a strike. That might be a touchdown. And you look at Caleb Williams' numbers maybe a little differently. So it's I said this on Monday, Johnsy. If we told everybody the Bears are 1-1, they lost to the Texans by 6, but they had the ball near midfield with a chance to win, I think most Bears fans would take that like gladly. But it's just how they've gotten to this point is a little frustrating. But yeah, I do feel like Daniel Jeremiah also had a spot on Rich Eisen where he went through Caleb Williams and similar stuff to Nate Tice. Like it doesn't seem like the worries right now are about the quarterback. So if you want to take solace in that, it doesn't seem like the quarterback right now is the issue. It doesn't not to say the other stuff is not bad, but you'd rather the other stuff be the problem than the
Yeah, well,
quarterback.
I'll put like, can Caleb Williams be better?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, he's a rookie, so you have to take that into consideration about how you're going to grade him, evaluate him. He hasn't played even a quarter of the season, so no one's giving up on him yet. I just found it encouraging to see that process take place, and this goes back to the Bears process, because the Bears, as a defense, Matt Eberflus, Eric Washington, the defensive coordinator, they threw all sorts of different blitzes at Caleb Williams throughout training camp, and it was Caleb Williams himself who spoke at length about how IDing the blitzes for him in camp became the most difficult thing. But the Bears were purposely trying to do that to challenge it, because they knew going into the season that teams were going to blitz the hell out of them, and we saw that produce a win for the Texans. But of course, there's more to it. There's no run game. You're missing Keenan Allen. There were some throws that did seem off. There seems to be miscommunications with Roma Dunze still happening every week. But to me, if I'm looking for positives, and I know this could be a dangerous game. We've done this before. Seeing Caleb Williams direct traffic like that, IDing the mic, setting the protection, getting things in order, and then obviously things failed around him still, like that's a positive to me. It's like the best way to look at that game if you're the Bears.
Yeah. And I do think too, like the worry that I have is that, like, so the defense held the Texans to 19 points. How many times this season do you think the Texans are only going to score 19 points? Right? Like, you cannot waste those efforts. You just can't do it. Like, you have this window of maybe a couple years, and this defense is really good right now. They're young, and when you get these games, like, because the problem is, like, you might think, oh, the defense are going to dominate Anthony Richardson. We don't know that because, like, it's a week to week league. We'll see. They have potential to do so, but you got to find ways to take advantage of this defense now, and because that's going to allow Caleb to keep building and keep growing. Because I've said so much, like, a lot of this season is about setting up for 2025. Well, if you get to January and this offense just still hasn't clicked, and Ryan Poles suddenly needs like 2 starting offensive linemen, and God forbid a new play call. I don't know, like, but like, you don't want to have a long laundry list of needs. You want to get to January and be like, we have the quarterback, we have the defense, we have the coaches. We just need like one player here, maybe one player there, and then we can be the Texans like that. And that's what Mike's story was about. Like, right now they feel so far apart, which is okay. But I think one of the things, the points Mike made was it was hard to watch the Bears on Sunday night and think about them getting to where the Texans are right now. Doesn't mean they won't get there, but just that vacuum, it was just a rough look for what this team is about right now.
To illustrate your point about it not being the quarterback who's at his worst right now, I think that the final possession for the Bears really does it. You have the Roma Dunze connection for the big gain on first down. Second down, you have the drop pass by Gerald Everett, which to me looked right on the money from Caleb Williams. And then the next play, you have Darnell Wright with his head down and the sack given up to Danielle Hunter. So those aren't on Caleb Williams. He did his part. Before we go, we have to officially wrap up the Texans game. And the way we do that, Kevin, is through voicemails. Let's go.
Hello?
Do you know who this is?
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The Hoge and Jahns voicemail. The Hoge and Jahns voicemail line.
Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep.
Got any questions or comments about the Bears? Give the guys a call before, after, or even during the game.
Go Bears!
Hoge, Johnsy Cat, checking in live from inside NRG. Bayless inactive in Space City, so he could be launched into orbit and no longer hurt this team.
If the Raiders can beat the Ravens and the Saints can beat Dallas, we know, baby, we can beat the Texans. We've been waiting all day for Sunday night. Bear down.
It's one drive, and I'm already done with the DeAndre Swift experience. This is not a running game that's going to work on the long term.
I cannot believe people actually fell for the Eberflus makeover. This guy is not a head coach. He's never been a head coach. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a good D coordinator, but he has no idea what the hell he's doing. That was probably the most egregious challenge I've ever seen in my life. I mean, who does that? Who does that?
How many positions on the O-line do we need? We need 3 or 4. This is a badly coached team.
Weird that they put Herbert in and suddenly the running game looks decent. I don't know. Weird how that works.
Hoagie Bear, Johnsy Babe. Bears just about to head into halftime here, currently 10-13. I like the effort's at. Defense got to tighten a couple things up here. The Texans have only had to punt, I think, once or twice now, so that's not really that good. Got to stop scoring drives, but thanks for looking up, and as always, bear down, baby, bear down.
This play calling is absolutely terrible. Another third quarter punt, and I'm just wondering, what is the plan for this offensive line? I have no idea what Foles is thinking. I'm just hoping that it doesn't involve Shelton and Davis ever again.
Who's calling these plays? Shane Getsky? Luke Waldron? I mean, do we have to give Eberflus offensive control now for calling plays? Come on.
It's a little bit into the fourth quarter, but you know what?
It looks like Caleb Williams quit, so I'm going to bed. Screw this crap.
This embarrassment is on Ryan Poles. This is a fucking joke. Damn offensive line can't block a fucking nosebleed. Get him the fuck off the fucking field. They're gonna get fucking Caleb Williams fucking killed.
Fourth quarter, can't move the ball. Looking pathetic. I have to watch Iowa on Saturdays. Sundays, no different. New year, same shit. Go Bears.
With that roughing the passer penalty, I think Caleb Williams has matched Justin Fields' Bears career total for roughing the passer calls.
I don't know who number 18 is. Sell the team. Fire everybody. Bear down.
I was supposed to go to the game with my dad and one of my friends next week, and at halftime, we all agreed we don't want to go. I hate this team, and I hate everyone.
I have tickets to next week's game against the Colts, and it feels like I have tickets to an execution.
I've been calling and I've been saying the same thing for 2 seasons and 2 games. Fire Eberflus.
Hey, Bears fans, B-Man here. We need to get this offense going. See you in Indy. Bear down!
The B-Man's headed to Indy.
They're only 1-1.
Yeah. I
get it. Listen,
Yes.
we walked out of there being like, oh boy. By the way, I like the Khalil Herbert line. I said to you in the press box, I call it the Ryan Pace personnel package, replacing the Shane Waldron personnel package. When Cole Kmet and Khalil Herbert come on the field and Gerald Everett and Travis Homer go off the field.
It's good.
We only saw it happen twice, but I thought that was a fun exchange of personnel out there.
I like that. Yeah, we know it's a familiar story. It's probably where some of the frustration lies, but it's a long season, everybody. Very, very long. Kev, before we
Jahns?
go, yeah, quick thoughts on Indy.
Well, it's Matty Eberflus revenge game. JJ Stankovic's revenge game. For those of you who are going to be in the stadium, you might hear a familiar voice. Yeah, well, the Colts are 2-point favorites, 2.5-point favorites. I mean,
DeForest Buckner's NIR.
Yeah, that's just on paper, the Bears are probably a better team. So yeah, it would be, because as I said, you get to this 5-game stretch and you should go 3-2. So let's see what this team's made of. And I'm very interested to see how adjustments are made. I mentioned this at Hallis Hall last week. Do you remember in 2017, there was a game where Tariq Cohen wasn't used at all? And it was clear that Tariq Cohen was far and away the best player on the offense that year. And we spent an entire week with Fox, with Dow, where's Tariq Cohen? And the next week he got 100 touches. Obviously exaggerating, but I just remember I mentioned the Justin Fields, the flip from Cleveland to Detroit in 2021. I don't know if there'll be that drastic of a change, but I'm just curious if there's something that's very noticeable with the offense. It just looks different. That is going to, as Mike Jones said, help Caleb Williams. I talked to Jason Garrett last week before the game, and he said, you got to create layups for your quarterback, especially in this situation. It's going to be a road game, road environment, in a dome. It's going to be a tough spot again. Create layups for Caleb Williams, and then that way he can go hit his home runs. I just did 2 sport metaphors. I realized that. Have him give him some singles so he can hit some home runs. Give him some layups so he can hit the fadeaway 3-pointer.
You are a sports writer. We've covered overcorrections before. You mentioned under Fox, under Nagy. I think we had already one under Shane Waldron, where he had the Cole Kmet usage change significantly from week 1 to week 2. So we know how these overcorrections seem to play out. I think it's a favorable matchup for the Bears. We'll get more to that Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. This ends Wednesday's episode. On Friday's episode, we'll fully break down the Colts game. Kev, thanks for filling in for Adam Hoge. Any final thoughts? Does he ask me all the time? I usually have nothing.
Maybe we'll have some funner facts next time.
More fun facts.
More fun facts.
Not so fun facts. Thanks, Kev. Read us, Kevin and I, on theathletic.com, Adam Hoge's newsletter. Sign up for that and allchgo.com. Shop our merch at hogeandjahns.com. We will be back on Friday. See ya.